Okay, I'm going to show you how to create a little bit more of a complex object and do some drawing. In this case, we're not actually going to subclass turtle. This is just creating a regular old object, but using it to do drawing. So I'm creating an object called a polygon. A polygon is made up, in this case, of a connection of points, a list of points that get connected. So my polygon has a turtle that it uses to do its drawing. It lifts the pen up at the beginning so that we don't start drawing until we want to. And then it has a list of points. The points begin empty, and we're going to build the points out as we go. So that list beginning will be nothing, but eventually could be any number of points. We then come to draw, and when we draw ourselves, if we're a polygon, we have a fill color. So we lift up the pencil, we set our fill color, we get our initial point, which actually we start at the last point for a reason that'll become clear in a minute. We go to that point and put the pencil down, and then we go through all the points beginning at the first, and we go from the last to the first, first to the second, second to the third, third to the whatever, until we're back at the last point again, so we've filled ourselves in. So if you imagine a triangle, for example, let's say we'd go to the last point in the triangle, and then we'd go to the first, so from the last to the first, from the first to the second, and then from the second to the last. So it'd be 3 lines altogether, and then we fill it in. So that's our draw method. We have an add point method, which simply adds a point to our list of points, and then that's using the append. And then we have add point and draw, which adds a point and simultaneously draws us, and this takes x, y, adds the point, resets our drawing, so we erase T reset, just erases anything this turtle has drawn before, and then draws us, and by default we draw it red for whatever reason. Finally, we have a clear method, which resets our points to 0 and calls turtle reset. So that's the polygon. Pretty straightforward. And we are then going to create a screen, create a polygon, and we set the onClick method to, on the left mouse button, draw, add point and draw, and on the right mouse, which in my laptop will be a 2-click, on a Mac, I'm not sure, you might be able to simulate that with control-click, or if you have right-click turned on, that would work, will be P clear. Notice again, I'm not calling the functions, I'm passing the functions as variables. And finally, I have to call main loop, or nothing will run at all. All right, so there it is. Over my shell. Normally, when you do programs, they'll never work the first time. I've already tested this, so it's actually going to run the first time, so you don't have to watch me debug. But don't expect that to happen in your own lives. Polygon. All right, there's my turtle I created. I click. It comes up. The first time, of course, it's just going through 0 points. So now it's going to come to the last point, first point, and the last again. In that case, it's just a line. Now it comes last, first, second, third. It creates the triangle as I predicted. All right, beautiful. Pentagon, hexagon, whatever I want. Notice I can actually interrupt it midway through drawing, and then we'll just start all over. All right, lovely. So my shape is getting kind of ugly because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I can now right-click, it resets it, and I start over. Point, line, triangle. Lovely, start over, we'll make a square. Oopsie daisies, I made an X instead. All right, not bad. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Lovely. There's my square. All right. So that is an example of how we can use object-oriented programming to create a little bit more complex shape. You can see that obviously creating something where you're maintaining state, such as a polygon, where it can have a complex state that grows more and more interesting over time, is a great example of where object-oriented programming can be very handy, because obviously this can grow kind of infinitely complex and I don't have to care. My program will do the work for me of remembering all those different points that I've put in, and it will go ahead and do the drawing. Obviously, it would be in my best interest to update the turtle so that I didn't have to watch it draw. We probably should change the speed parameters next time so we don't have to sit here watching it draw. But that's a pretty good example of a simple little program. And the beauty is, once I have this thing built, it's pretty easy to make it more complicated. So for example, I could add the reflection of each point every time I add it. And let's see what happens in that case. So now we're going to do, we go to -x, and we'll see. This is probably not something I'd like, but you know, it could be fun to see. By the way, if you've called it with main loop, the program will, first of all, let's just see how complicated my polygon has gotten. But anyway, the program will now exit when you click the X. And while I'm at it, let me go and hide my turtle. That should speed things up. Speed it up a bit. Self T speed 0. Okay, let's see if that does the job. So there's a fancier, oopsie daisies. Hide was not an actual argument. Looks like I forgot what that was called. Turtle. Hide turtle is the argument. So hide turtle. All right, let's try that one more time. And see if I got it right. All right. Notice, by the way, when I'm writing code live, even as a demo, I always make mistakes, and that's just to be expected. So there we go. Now my polygon immediately gets a little more interesting. It's always going to have these squares. It goes significantly faster with speed 0, but not as fast as it could go if I turned the updating off altogether. And it's not totally obvious how these shapes work, is it? I'd have to think through the math of what I did, but basically this is creating a bunch of embedded squares. Every new click adds some complexity to the embedded squares. And it remembers everything that's been queued up to draw, unfortunately. So in real time, it's going to keep adding new drawings for each click I did. Still pretty straightforward program. There's my modified Polygon program. You could probably modify it to do something more useful if you wanted to, but that's kind of a fun set of shapes it created. All right, I hope that's helpful. I will be adding more layers of complexity in the next video.